You arrive slowly, as if the night itself has invited you to take your time. You are standing beside a vast, dark lake, and the first thing you notice is how quiet everything feels. Not an empty quiet, but a gentle one, layered and alive, like a held breath that never grows tense. The air is cool against your skin. It rests there, unbothered. You are allowed to rest too. You do not come here to search. You come here to notice. The lake stretches outward, smooth as glass, reflecting a sky scattered with stars. Their light does not flicker. It lingers. You breathe in, slowly, and the lake seems to breathe with you. You breathe out, longer than before, and the surface of the water remains calm, as if it approves of your patience. You are safe here. Nothing is chasing you. Nothing is collapsing. You are simply standing at the edge of something deep, and depth does not mean danger. Depth means quiet layers, stacked gently beneath one another, each one holding the next without complaint. This is where the story begins. Not with a black hole, not with darkness, not with destruction, but with stillness. With a lake beneath the stars. With gravity felt not as a pull, but as a presence. A subtle leaning of the universe toward itself. Like water finding a low place and deciding, without discussion, to stay. You watch the surface closely now. Light rests upon it, soft and silver. The stars above appear doubled, once in the sky and once in the water, as if the universe is practicing reflection. You notice how the light does not rush across the lake. It settles. It drifts. It seems content to remain exactly where it is, which feels like a useful lesson, honestly. Somewhere beneath the surface, the lake grows deeper. You cannot see where, but you can feel it. A sense of quiet thickening, like the air before sleep fully arrives. This is how gravity works. Not as a force that grabs, but as a shape that invites. Space itself curves gently, like the basin of the lake, and everything within it simply follows the contour. You do not need numbers to feel this. You do not need equations. You already understand it in your body. You understand how your shoulders soften when you stop holding them up. You understand how your breath falls naturally when you stop trying to control it. The universe behaves the same way. It relaxes into itself. The lake is a metaphor, yes, but it is also a teacher. It shows you how matter settles, how light glides, how stillness can hold incredible complexity without making a sound about it. Somewhere far away, stars burn and scatter their light across unimaginable distances, yet here, beside the lake, all of that activity arrives as calm. You imagine the deepest part of the water now. Not as a hole, not as a mouth, but as a place where the lake becomes very, very quiet. A place where the surface remains smooth, even as depth increases beneath it. This is how you are first introduced to black holes. Not as monsters, not as cosmic vacuum cleaners, but as regions where nature grows precise and still. Black holes are not interruptions. They are conclusions. They are places where gravity finishes speaking and begins listening. The universe does not shout there. It whispers, if it speaks at all. You smile a little at that thought, because the universe whispering feels oddly polite. You imagine it clearing its throat, then deciding not to bother. Even cosmic phenomena deserve a night off. A faint sound drifts through the air now, something like a distant hum. Perhaps insects, perhaps wind, perhaps your own imagination filling in the silence. It does not matter. The sound wraps around you gently, like a blanket you did not realize you needed. You let your breathing match it. Slow. Even. Unforced. Gravity, you realize, is not trying to pull you anywhere. It is simply shaping the space around you, the way the lake shapes its own surface. Everything moves because it fits. Everything rests because it can. You think about how often you resist this idea. How often you believe movement must be effort, that change must be loud. The lake suggests otherwise. The deepest changes happen quietly. The most powerful forces announce themselves with stillness. You glance back at the stars. One of their reflections seems dimmer than before, as if the lake has decided to keep a little of the light for itself. This is not loss. It is gathering. Light curves toward depth the same way water does. Not because it is forced, but because that is the shape of things. You take another slow breath. Inhale softly. Pause. Exhale longer than the breath before. Your body responds immediately. Muscles loosen. Thoughts drift. The lake remains unchanged, which somehow makes everything else feel allowed to change. This is the beginning of understanding. Not understanding as mastery, but understanding as companionship. You are not here to conquer the universe. You are here to sit beside it for a while, to notice how it behaves when no one is demanding anything from it. The idea of a black hole no longer feels sharp. It feels round. It feels like a place where the lake becomes so deep that light itself slows down to consider staying. A place where motion becomes optional. A place where the universe takes a long, thoughtful pause. You chuckle quietly at the thought that even light needs rest sometimes. Especially light. Traveling all that way, never stopping. It deserves a lake. The night grows slightly cooler, or perhaps you are simply more aware of your skin now. The boundary between you and the world feels thinner, softer. You are part of this scene, not separate from it. Gravity holds you the same way it holds the stars. Gently. Consistently. Without judgment. You remain at the shore. You do not step into the water. There is no need. Observation is enough. Presence is enough. The lake does not ask you to approach. It simply exists, and that is invitation enough. As you breathe out again, the stars shimmer faintly on the surface. One reflection bends, just slightly, as if the light itself is learning something new about the shape of space. You watch this change without concern. Without urgency. The lake remains calm. You remain calm. And somewhere within the quiet, light begins to curve. You are still standing by the lake, exactly where you were, and yet something has quietly changed. The air feels the same, cool and gentle, but the light on the water no longer behaves as you expect. The stars remain above you, calm and distant, but their reflections seem to drift, stretching slightly, as if the surface of the lake has begun to teach them a slower language. You breathe in through your nose. The air feels smooth. You breathe out through parted lips, like fog on glass. The lake answers with patience. Light usually feels certain. It travels as if it knows where it is going, confident and uninterrupted. But here, near the deeper places of the lake, certainty loosens. The reflected starlight does not break. It does not panic. It simply bends, following the subtle slope of the water, like a thought changing its mind halfway through. You watch this without surprise. After all, you have already learned something important from the lake. Depth changes behavior. Not dramatically. Quietly. The deeper the water, the more gently everything above it begins to curve. This is how gravity speaks to light. Not with commands, not with force, but with shape. Space itself is not flat here. It dips. It relaxes downward, like a hammock that has decided to hold the universe for a while. Light, polite as ever, follows along. You imagine the lake as space itself now, smooth and flexible, never rigid. The deeper places pull not because they are greedy, but because they are shaped to receive. Light travels across the shape the same way water slides along a slope. It curves because that is the easiest path. The most natural one. You feel a small comfort in that idea. Even light prefers rest over resistance. A faint hum reaches your ears. Perhaps insects. Perhaps wind. Perhaps the universe clearing its throat again and deciding silence is better. The sound steadies you. It gives your mind something soft to lean against while your thoughts drift outward, slow and unhurried. You notice that the bending light does not fall inward all at once. It arcs. It glides. It traces gentle paths around the deeper regions of the lake, looping slightly before continuing on. Nothing collides. Nothing shatters. There is only adjustment. This is spacetime curvature, though you do not need the name to feel it. You understand it the same way you understand how your body leans into a comfortable chair without instruction. Space curves, and light settles into that curve, grateful to stop insisting on straightness. You smile faintly at the idea that straight lines might be overrated. Even light eventually agrees. The lake seems to glow more now, not brighter, but fuller. The reflections stretch and bend, creating soft arcs that ripple outward. Each ripple carries information, but none of it feels urgent. The universe is not sending warnings. It is demonstrating patience. You remember how the previous stillness felt, how the lake introduced you to depth without fear. This is the next layer of that lesson. Depth does not only hold things. It guides them. It shapes how they move. You shift your weight slightly, feeling the ground beneath your feet. Solid. Reliable. Gravity holds you too, though you rarely notice. It shapes your steps, your posture, the way your breath falls naturally when you stop thinking about it. You and the light are not so different after all. Both of you respond to shape rather than command. The stars overhead remain fixed, but their mirrored versions drift lazily across the lake. One reflection circles a deeper patch of water, looping again and again, like it has forgotten where it was going. Or maybe it has decided it likes this path better. You suppress a soft laugh at the thought of light getting distracted. It feels appropriate. Even photons deserve to wander occasionally. The curve becomes more noticeable the longer you watch, not sharper, just clearer. The light does not fall into the depth. It skirts it. It acknowledges it. It traces its outline with respect, like someone walking around a sleeping animal rather than waking it. This is important. Gravity does not always pull things in directly. Often, it invites them to dance around its shape. The deepest places bend paths long before they capture anything. Influence arrives before arrival. You let that idea settle. Influence before arrival. It feels true in more ways than one. Your breathing slows again. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The lake seems to echo the rhythm, its surface responding with barely visible motion. Everything here moves, but nothing hurries. Light, once so straight and decisive, has learned flexibility. It has learned that curves can be gentle. That direction can change without loss. That bending does not mean breaking. You think about how often you resist bending. How often you try to remain straight in a curved world. The lake does not judge you for this. It simply continues demonstrating another way. The reflections ripple softly now, each arc blending into the next. One path circles longer than the others, looping near the deepest water, lingering as if unsure whether to leave. It is not trapped. It is simply undecided. You find that comforting. Even light is allowed to hesitate. The night air cools slightly, or perhaps you are simply more relaxed, more aware of the boundary between your skin and the world. The hum continues, steady and low, like a lullaby with no melody. You stay where you are, watching the curves trace themselves endlessly. No straight lines argue here. No corners interrupt the flow. The universe feels round. Forgiving. Willing to accommodate. As you breathe out once more, the circling ripple tightens its path, drifting closer to the deepest part of the lake. It does not fall. It does not escape. It simply continues, looping gently, again and again, as if the lake has taught it a new way to stay. You remain by the lake, but your attention drifts inward now, toward the place where the water grows deepest. You do not move your feet. You do not lean forward. Still, the lake seems closer, as if curiosity itself can shorten distance. The air cools just slightly, or maybe you are simply noticing more carefully. Listening more deeply. This part of the lake feels different. Not dangerous. Just quiet in a heavier way. The surface remains smooth, yet something beneath it gathers. You sense a boundary here, but it does not look like a line. It does not rise like a wall. It feels more like a moment where outward motion slowly forgets how to continue. You breathe in. You breathe out. The lake does nothing dramatic in response, and that is exactly the point. This is the edge people talk about when they speak of black holes. The event horizon. A phrase that sounds sharp, but behaves softly. It is not a rim or a gate. It is a region where paths change their minds. Where leading becomes less likely, not because anything blocks the way, but because space itself leans inward. You imagine standing at the shoreline of very deep water. Not stepping in. Just standing. If you dropped a leaf here, it would not plunge. It would drift, hesitate, circle, as if the lake were whispering suggestions rather than issuing commands. Nothing snaps shut at this edge. Nothing closes. There is no sudden moment of capture. From far away, everything appears almost frozen, movements stretching longer and longer, like a yawn that never quite finishes. Time itself slows, not abruptly, but gradually, thickening like water cooling into syrup. You notice how comfortable that idea feels. Slowing without stopping. Stretching without breaking. You realize how much of your own life is spent fearing edges, believing they must be sharp. The lake offers a gentler version, an edge that simply changes how movement behaves. The surface above the deepest point remains calm. Light still glides across it, though its paths are tighter now, more curved, tracing smaller arcs. The lake does not advertise its depth. It does not warn. It simply exists as it is. You listen again. The faint hum remains. It feels farther away now, or maybe you are sinking inward, toward a quieter layer of attention. The world does not disappear. It softens. At this edge, outward motion becomes difficult, not because something pushes back, but because space itself slopes too steeply inward. Imagine walking uphill on very soft ground. Each step sinks slightly. Forward progress requires more patience. Eventually, standing still feels easier than continuing. This is how information behaves near a black hole. Light signals, even moments themselves slow as they try to leave. From a distance, it looks as though they never quite succeed. They hover. They linger. They stretch into long, slow farewells. You find yourself oddly reassured by this. Nothing is erased. Nothing is torn apart. Things simply remain, held in extended moments, like words spoken slowly so they are not misunderstood. You inhale again, letting your shoulders soften. You exhale, longer this time, as if sinking into warm water. The edge does not rush you. It does not demand a crossing. It is not interested in drama. It is a quiet agreement written into the shape of space. Past this region, returning becomes impossible, not because of force, but because all possible paths lean inward. You appreciate the honesty of that. The universe is not tricking anything. It simply arranges the terrain. The lake grows darker beyond this edge, but not empty. The darkness feels full, layered, unreadable rather than absent. Like a closed book resting peacefully on a shelf, content to keep its story to itself. You smile faintly at the thought of the universe respecting privacy. Some things are not meant to be shared immediately. Or ever. And that is allowed. You think about time again. How it behaves here. How from your distant shore, everything near the edge appears slowed, almost paused. From within, though, nothing feels strange. Moments continue, one after another, breath after breath, entirely normal to those experiencing them. Perspective matters. The lake teaches this gently. Where you stand changes what you see. The edge remains invisible. You cannot point to it. You cannot draw it. It exists as behavior, not as structure. As tendency, not as boundary. The lake does not need lines to define itself. You remember how the previous chapter showed light bending. Here, that bending becomes more extreme, yet still graceful. Paths tighten. Circles become smaller. Some loops repeat endlessly, skimming the edge without crossing. You imagine light feeling curious but cautious, like a cat inspecting a deep box before deciding whether to climb inside. The thought makes you smile again. Even cosmic phenomena deserve a little personality, especially when they behave so patiently. The air feels very still now. Not heavy. Just quiet. Your breath becomes the most noticeable movement. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The lake mirrors this rhythm, though its movements are almost imperceptible. You realize something important here. The edge does not mark destruction. It marks separation. A place where stories diverge. Where what happens inside no longer sends updates outward. Not because it cannot, but because space no longer offers a path. Information rests there, not lost, simply unshared. You feel no urge to cross. Curiosity remains, but it has softened. The lake has taught you that understanding does not require entry. Observation is enough. Respect is enough. Beyond the edge, the darkness deepens further. Still full. Still calm. Still unreadable. You accept this without frustration. Some answers remain quiet. The faint hum fades slightly, or perhaps your attention shifts inward again. The night air brushes your skin. Cool. Gentle. Reassuring. You remain where you are, at the shore, watching the lake breathe in its own way. The edge stays where it is, not advancing, not retreating. Just existing, like a long-held pause in a conversation that does not need to continue immediately. You take one more slow breath. Inhale. Let your shoulders soften. Exhale, as if sinking into warm water. Beyond the edge, the lake grows darker still, not empty, not frightening, simply unreadable, waiting quietly for the next thing you are ready to notice. You are still with the lake, but your perspective changes without effort. There is no lifting, no motion you can feel. And yet, you are somehow higher now, looking down from a gentle distance, as if curiosity itself has learned how to float. The lake lies beneath you, vast and quiet, its surface glowing softly with reflected starlight. From here, you notice something new. At the center of the lake is a darkness that reflects nothing at all. It is not sudden. It does not announce itself. It simply exists, perfectly calm, perfectly still. Around it, light gathers in a soft ring, bending and circling, glowing gently as if it understands where it should not go. The darkness does not spread. It does not reach outward. It waits. This is the shadow. Not the black hole itself, but its outline. Its quiet signature written in missing light. You feel no fear as you look at it. From this distance, the shadow feels almost comforting, like a closed eye resting beneath the night. The contrast between glow and absence is smooth, deliberate, unhurried. Darkness here is not aggressive. It is precise. You breathe slowly, feeling warmth in your chest despite the cool night air. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The shadow does not change. It does not respond. It does not need to. The lake teaches you something important now. You cannot see the deepest place directly, but you can see how everything else behaves around it. Light curves, gathers, and disappears from view, leaving behind a clear, silent boundary. Absence becomes evidence. You smile softly at that idea. Even nothing can be informative. Around the shadow, the water glows faintly, a halo shaped by motion you cannot directly witness. Light rushes close, bends sharply, and vanishes, not dramatically, but completely. The result is not chaos. It is geometry. A clean, calm outline formed by rules that never raise their voice. This is how black holes reveal themselves. Not by shining, but by refusing to. They let the universe draw their portrait in negative space. You find this oddly polite. Instead of demanding attention, the black hole steps aside and lets everything else speak for it. It feels like the quiet person in a room who somehow ends up telling you the most. You listen again to the distant hum. It returns, low and steady, like a reminder that observation itself can be gentle. You do not need to lean closer. You do not need to understand everything at once. The shadow is patient. From far away, this darkness looks solid, like a disk painted onto the lake. But you know better now. It is not a surface. It is not an object. It is a silhouette, shaped by paths of light that never quite make it back out. You imagine tossing a pebble of light toward the center. It would curve. It would spiral. It would hesitate. And then, quietly, it would stop sending news of its journey. Not destroyed. Just unshared. That distinction feels important. The shadow does not mark where things end. It marks where communication changes. Where the universe decides to keep certain conversations private. You appreciate that. Privacy feels sacred here. The halo around the shadow glows more clearly as your eyes adjust. It is not perfectly circular. It is subtly stretched, shaped by motion, by spin, by the quiet turning of spacetime itself. You cannot see the turning directly, but the shadow remembers it. The outline carries memory. This darkness is not empty of information. It is full of it, compressed into shape. You think of shadows you know. The ones cast by trees at dusk. The ones that stretch across walls as the sun lowers. They are not objects, yet they tell you exactly where the light is, and where it is not. This shadow does the same, only on a scale that makes the mind feel small in a gentle way. You chuckle quietly at the idea of being humbled by a shadow. It feels like the universe using minimal effort to make a point. You remain at a safe distance, wrapped in perspective. You do not need to enter the darkness to understand it. The lake shows you how much can be learned from watching edges. The shadow shifts almost imperceptibly as light continues its endless approach and retreat. The change is subtle, like the slow movement of clouds you only notice once they have already moved. Motion without urgency. Change without alarm. Your breathing stays slow. Inhale. Exhale. Pause. The shadow holds steady through it all. You realize now why this matters. For a long time, black holes were imagined as invisible, unknowable. But the shadow gives them form without revealing their interior. It confirms that the rules you have been sensing all along are real. That gravity shapes light. That spacetime curves smoothly. that the universe behaves consistently, even in its quietest extremes. The shadow is proof without intrusion. You feel a small sense of gratitude for that. For knowledge that does not require disturbance. For understanding that arrives through patience rather than force. The lake remains still beneath the shadow, its surface undisturbed. There is no whirlpool. No tearing motion. Just a calm refusal to reflect certain paths of light. The absence feels intentional. You imagine the universe shrugging gently, saying, "This far, and no farther." The hum grows softer again, or maybe your attention drifts. Your body feels heavy in a pleasant way, like settling into a comfortable chair that supports you without comment. You are alert, but relaxed. Curious, but unstrained. The shadow continues to speak without sound. It tells you that space has shape. It tells you that light listens. It tells you that silence can be measured. You stay with these ideas, letting them float through you like warm air. There is no rush to interpret. Meaning settles on its own time. Around the shadow, the glowing ring shifts again, stretched just slightly, as if something beneath the surface is turning. You cannot see that motion directly, but the outline remembers it. The shadow is shaped by movement you cannot witness. That thought lingers. Something unseen is influencing everything you can see. You feel a gentle pull of anticipation, not excitement, but readiness. The lake has shown you stillness. It has shown you bending. It has shown you edges. Now it offers you a silhouette shaped by motion. You take another slow breath, letting the pause stretch comfortably. The shadow remains calm. The light continues to curve. And beneath the surface, something turns, quietly shaping what you are about to notice next. You are still near the lake, still held by its quiet, but something about movement feels different now. Not difficult. Just slower. As if the night itself has decided that rushing would be impolite. The air rests against your skin with a little more weight, a little more intention, and you find yourself breathing even more deliberately. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The lake responds in its own way, surface smooth, depth patient. Near the center, where the water grows deepest, motion behaves strangely. Not sharply. Gently. Everything that approaches seems to take its time, as if moments themselves are stretching out, enjoying the space they occupy. You imagine dropping a leaf onto the water here. It does not sink quickly. It does not drift away easily. It lingers, rocking slowly, as if deciding whether the next second is really necessary yet. Time, like the water, has thickened. This is how gravity treats time near its deepest places. Not by stopping it. Not by breaking it. But by slowing it, the way cold honey pours more slowly than warm. The flow remains continuous. It simply asks for patience. You feel this idea settle comfortably inside you. Slowness is not loss. Slowness is texture. From where you stand, watching from a gentle distance, everything near the lake's center seems almost paused. Light circles lazily. Reflections linger. Movements stretch into long, unhurried gestures. It feels as if the universe is holding a note, letting it resonate instead of rushing to the next sound. You breathe again, letting your body match the rhythm. Inhale for comfort. Exhale for release. Nothing urges you forward. Nothing pulls you back. You are allowed to stay exactly where you are. Closer to the deep, time behaves differently depending on where you look from. From your shore, moments near the center appear longer, heavier, more deliberate. From within those moments, though, nothing feels strange at all. Breath follows breath. Thoughts follow thoughts. Experience continues normally, wrapped in its own quiet consistency. Perspective shapes experience. The lake teaches this without explanation. You smile softly at the thought that time itself is relative, even if it would rather not brag about it. It simply adjusts to the shape of space, the same way water adjusts to the shape of its basin. No complaints. No resistance. Just adaptation. The surface of the lake remains calm, but beneath it, depth continues to gather. Space curves more steeply. Paths lean inward. And time, loyal companion that it is, follows along, slowing its pace to match the terrain. You feel a pleasant heaviness in your limbs now, the kind that comes just before sleep fully arrives. Not exhaustion. Comfort. Like being wrapped in a blanket that understands exactly how warm you want to be. The faint hum returns, distant and steady. It sounds slower too, though you know that is only your perception softening. Even sounds seem willing to stretch out their syllables here. You consider how often you wish for time to slow down. How often moments feel like they rush past before you can rest inside them. The lake offers a different version of time, one that does not flee. One that lingers. Near a black hole, this lingering becomes extreme. Time slows so much that from far away, it appears to nearly stop. Objects seem frozen at the edge, their moments stretched thin, like taffy pulled endlessly without snapping. You do not find this frightening. You find it tender. The universe refusing to rush even at its most intense. You imagine time as water again, flowing toward the deepest place. As the slope steepens, the flow thickens. The current does not disappear. It simply moves differently. Each second contains more space inside it. You chuckle quietly at the idea of seconds with extra room. It feels like something you could use. The lake glows faintly now, not brighter, but softer. Light moves slowly across the surface, tracing paths that take their time arriving anywhere. Nothing feels delayed. Everything feels intentional. You notice that even your thoughts have slowed. They no longer stack on top of each other. They drift in single file, each one given a little more room to exist before the next arrives. It feels kind. Your mind appreciates the courtesy. Gravity does not demand this slowness. It allows it. Time follows the shape that gravity creates, the way water follows a gentle incline. There is no struggle in this relationship. Just cooperation. You remain at the shore, observing without urgency. You are not drawn inward. You are not pushed away. You are simply witnessing how the universe behaves when depth becomes extreme. You take another breath, longer this time. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. The pause feels especially spacious. Somewhere near the center, a ripple moves outward, very slowly, carrying information that will take a long time to arrive anywhere else. Long after its source has quieted, the ripple continues. Slowness preserves things. It keeps messages intact. That thought stays with you. Slowing does not erase meaning. It protects it. The night air feels warmer now, or perhaps you have settled more deeply into yourself. The boundary between you and the lake feels softer, less defined. You are not separate from this scene. You are participating in it by observing. Time continues to thicken near the deepest place, stretching moments into something almost tactile. You can imagine reaching out and touching a second, feeling its weight, its texture, its warmth. You smile again, comforted by the idea that time can be held. From afar, the lake looks almost unchanged. Only patience reveals the difference. Only stillness allows you to notice how motion slows, how moments lengthen, how the universe learns to rest within itself. You stay with this feeling, letting it settle like warm water around you. A distant ripple continues its slow journey outward, carrying its quiet message across the lake, inviting you gently toward the next thing waiting to be understood. You are still with the lake, still breathing slowly, still wrapped in the thick and calm of time, when you begin to sense a new kind of motion. It does not announce itself. It does not ripple the surface or disturb the reflections. It is something you feel rather than see, like the subtle turning sensation that comes when you lie on your back watching clouds drift in a wide circle overhead. The lake is rotating. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just enough to matter. You remain steady at the shore, your body unmoving, yet space itself seems to shift around you. The stars above hold their places, but their reflections curve ever so slightly, tracing paths that no longer feel purely circular. The movement is slow, graceful, almost shy, as if the lake is turning without wanting to draw attention to itself. You breathe in as the world turns. You breathe out as it settles. This is spin, revealed quietly. When a black hole rotates, it does not spin like a top flung across a table. It turns the way a deep body of water turns, carrying its surroundings along in a slow, cooperative swirl. Space does not resist. It follows. You imagine leaves resting on the lake's surface. They do not tumble or collide. They drift, gently guided, tracing lazy spirals that feel inevitable rather than forced. The lake does not grab them. It invites them into motion. This is how rotating gravity behaves. It drags space itself, not harshly, not suddenly, but patiently. The very fabric of the universe begins to move, as if it has decided that standing still is no longer necessary. You find this oddly reassuring. Even motion here is soft. The air around you feels faintly different now, as if the turning has brushed against it. The distant hum remains, but it seems to curve too, bending gently around the scene. Sound, light, space, all participating in the same slow agreement. You smile a little at the idea of the universe agreeing with itself. It feels polite. Coordinated. Like a dance where everyone already knows the steps. The lake's rotation does not speed up. It does not demand attention. It simply continues, steady and unhurried, shaping the paths of everything nearby. Light curves differently now, its arcs slightly stretched, its loops gently tilted. You remember the shadow you saw before, how its shape carried memory of unseen motion. This is that memory made visible. spin leaves fingerprints. Not scratches, not scars, but subtle asymmetries, quiet clues written into the outline of absence. You do not need to see the motion directly to know it is there. The lake tells you through its behavior. You shift your weight slightly, feeling the ground beneath your feet. Solid. Reliable. The turning of space does not make you dizzy. It feels distant, contained, like a story being told at a respectful volume. You think about how rotation works closer to home. How a spinning chair pulls your arms outward when you extend them. How movement changes the rules. Here, though, nothing is flung away. Instead, everything is drawn into shared motion. Near a rotating black hole, space itself is pulled along, coaxed into turning. Paths that once felt straight now curve differently. Directions lean. Orientation becomes flexible. You find comfort in that flexibility. The universe does not insist on rigid frames. It adapts. You breathe again, slow and deep. Inhale as the world turns. Exhale as it settles. The lake's surface remains smooth. No waves announce the spin. No splashes betray the motion. This turning is not meant to be seen easily. It is meant to be inferred, felt through consequences rather than spectacle. You imagine space as fabric again, soft and responsive. When the deepest part of the lake turns, it gently twists this fabric, pulling nearby threads into motion. Nothing tears. Nothing strains. The fabric is made for this. Time, too, follows along. It does not fight the spin. It stretches and leans, keeping pace with the turning space. Everything cooperates. You chuckle quietly at the thought of time keeping up, slightly out of breath but pretending it is fine. Even cosmic concepts deserve a moment of humor. The rotation shapes the region around the lake's center, influencing how light circles, how shadows stretch. You begin to understand how scientists can learn about unseen motion simply by watching outlines, by listening to how space responds. Observation here feels like eavesdropping on a very polite conversation. The night air feels steady against your skin. Cool. Gentle. Supportive. You feel no need to move. No urge to interfere. The lake does not require witnesses, but it allows them. You stay present, letting the idea of rotating space settle into you. Motion does not always feel like movement. Sometimes it feels like orientation changing quietly beneath your feet. The hum grows slightly warmer now, or perhaps your attention softens further. The boundary between thought and sensation blurs pleasantly. You are not analyzing. You are absorbing. The lake continues its slow turn. The shadow you remember stretches subtly in your mind, shaped by this unseen spin. Absence remembers motion. Silence carries direction. You feel a gentle curiosity stir, not sharp, not urgent. Just a readiness to notice more. The lake has shown you stillness, bending, edges, shadows, slowness, and now rotation. Each layer arrives without haste, each idea resting easily beside the last. You take one more slow breath. Inhale as space turns beneath the surface. Exhale as everything finds its place. The rotation continues, calm and faithful, shaping what you will notice next, quietly preparing the shadow to tell you what it remembers. You remain above the lake, held in that gentle distance where nothing demands your involvement. The shadow is still there at the center, calm and precise, outlined by light that continues its endless approach and retreat. Nothing rushes. Nothing changes suddenly. And yet, you begin to feel that the shadow is not silent after all. It remembers. Not in words, not in images, but in shape. In contour. In the way its edges curve and stretch, subtly different from perfect symmetry. The shadow carries information the way a fingerprint carries identity. Quietly. Completely. Without explanation. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out. The lake listens. You notice how the shadow's outline is not perfectly round. It leans just slightly, shaped by motion beneath the surface. Spin has left its mark. Depth has left its mark. The lake does not forget what has passed through it. It holds memory and form rather than story. This feels important. You realize that even when something cannot be seen directly, it still leaves traces. The universe is generous that way. It allows you to learn without forcing you to look where you were not meant to look. The shadow does not reveal the inside. It does not betray what happens beyond the edge. But it tells you enough. It tells you how heavy the lake is. How deeply space curves. How faithfully time and light have followed the shape they were given. You smile softly at the idea that the universe leaves clues instead of answers. It feels respectful. Like a teacher who trusts you to connect things in your own time. The faint glow around the shadow brightens and dims as light continues to skim close, tracing paths shaped by gravity and spin. Each curve is a sentence. Each arc a memory. The shadow is written by everything that cannot quite escape. You feel a quiet awe settle in, not the sharp kind that tightens the chest, but the warm kind that spreads slowly, like heat from a cup held in both hands. You are not overwhelmed. You are accompanied. This is how scientists learn from black holes. Not by peering inside, but by listening to how the universe behaves around them. The shadow confirms what careful thought has already suggested. It says, yes, space bends here. Yes, time slows. Yes, rotation matters. It says these things without raising its voice. You let that sink in. Nature does not need to argue with itself. It demonstrates. The lake remains still. The shadow remains calm. Nothing feels unstable. The deepest, most extreme objects in the universe reveal themselves through gentleness. That feels like a secret you are allowed to keep. You think about memory now. About how you carry it. Not as a perfect record, but as impressions. As tendencies. As ways you respond without always knowing why. You and the shadow are not so different. Memory shapes behavior. It bends paths. It influences what comes next. The shadow remembers mass. It remembers spin. It remembers geometry. It remembers the shape of the space that created it. Without speaking, it confirms that the universe behaves the way it promised it would. You chuckle quietly at the idea of the universe keeping promises. It feels comforting, like discovering that an old clock still ticks steadily in the background of everything. The hum returns, soft and distant. It feels almost affectionate now, like a sound meant only to reassure you that observation is allowed to be calm. You do not need to rush toward meaning. Meaning drifts toward you on its own. You watch the shadow long enough that your eyes stop trying to interpret it. It becomes simply what it is. A presence defined by absence. A memory written in light that never returns. The lake's surface reflects faint starlight, but the shadow remains dark, untouched by reflection. It does not absorb attention. It holds it gently. You feel no urge to fill the darkness with explanation. Some things are meant to remain outlined rather than opened. The universe seems comfortable with that. You decide to be comfortable too. Breathing stays slow. Inhale. Exhale. Pause. The pause feels especially kind. You realize now that the shadow is not just evidence of a black hole. It is evidence of understanding. It confirms that careful thought, patient observation, and quiet listening can reveal even the most hidden structures. The lake has been teaching you this all along. Stillness first. Then bending. Then edges. Then shadows. Then time. Then spin. Each layer arriving without urgency, each idea resting easily beside the last. Now, memory. You sense how the shadow gathers all of this into a single shape. It is not random. It is not chaotic. It is ordered, precise, calm. The universe, even at its extremes, prefers coherence. That realization settles something in you. The world feels a little less unpredictable. A little more trustworthy. Not because it is simple, but because it is consistent. You think again of the deepest water beneath the shadow. You cannot see it. You cannot hear it. But you know it is there, shaping everything above it. The unseen does not feel threatening anymore. It feels foundational. You let your shoulders relax further. You let your breath lengthen. Your body understands before your mind does. The shadow does not change, but your relationship to it does. It feels familiar now. Not friendly, not unfriendly. Just known. You stay with it a while longer, letting the idea of remembered motion settle gently into you. Spin remembered by shape. Depth remembered by darkness. Time remembered by stillness. The lake begins to reflect a faint light that was not there before. Not bright. Just present. The suggestion of dawn far away, not yet arriving, but certain. The shadow remains, but it feels less heavy now, as if it has finished telling you what it needed to say. You take one more slow breath. Inhale clarity. Exhale expectation. The lake holds its memory quietly, and somewhere beyond the shadow, a new light waits, ready to touch the surface when the night finally decides to soften. You do not move closer to the lake. Instead, you step back in a different way, loosening your focus, allowing your attention to widen. The shadow remains at the center, calm and complete, but now you notice how much of the scene has always been made of things you cannot see. The lake does not mind this shift. It has been waiting for you to listen. Sound arrives first as a suggestion. A low, distant hum, steady and patient, like the quiet vibration of the world resting on itself. It is not loud enough to interrupt thought. It is not soft enough to disappear. It simply exists, inviting awareness rather than demanding it. You breathe in slowly. You breathe out even more slowly. The hum stays. Light has carried you this far, bending and circling, sketching shadows and memories. But now, the universe offers another way of knowing. Listening. Not with ears alone, but with instruments, with patience, with shared stillness spread gently across the world. You imagine people far away, scattered across the surface of the earth, each one quietly listening to the sky. No rushing. No competition. Just attention stretched wide, like a net lowered carefully into dark water. These instruments do not look directly. They receive. They wait for faint whispers traveling across space, signals that have drifted for a very long time without urgency. The universe is not shouting. It is murmuring, trusting that someone, somewhere, will be calm enough to hear. You find that idea deeply comforting. Understanding as an act of listening feels kinder than understanding as an act of conquest. The lake reflects this approach perfectly. It has never tried to explain itself to you. It has only behaved consistently, allowing meaning to gather where observation lingers. Signals arrive the same way. Softly. Indirectly. Patiently. You imagine radio waves as gentle ripples moving across the lake's surface. They are not visible. They do not disturb the water. They pass through, carrying information the way a breeze carries scent. If you are still enough, you notice. Humanity becomes very quiet in this moment. Many minds, many instruments, all choosing to wait together. Listening becomes collective. Stillness becomes shared. Knowledge grows not from force, but from coordination. You smile faintly at the thought of the planet holding its breath together. It feels like the kind of teamwork you wish happened more often. The hum deepens slightly, or perhaps your awareness sinks into it. You feel warmth in your chest, the kind that comes from sensing connection without words. You are not alone in observing this lake. You never were. Signals arrive from the direction of the shadow, shaped by gravity, by spin, by time itself. They are faint, stretched thin by distance and patience. Each one carries a fragment of the lake's story, not as images, but as patterns waiting to be assembled. You do not rush this process. Neither does anyone else. The listening continues across nights, across seasons, across quiet shifts in the sky. Understanding forms slowly, like sediment settling into recognizable layers. The lake approves of this pace. You imagine the earth as part of the listening now, turning gently, carrying instruments into alignment again and again. Each position adds context. Each angle adds clarity. No single place hears enough alone. Cooperation becomes perception. The shadow does not resist this attention. It does not reveal more than it intends to. But the signals that skirt its edge, that bend and slow and return altered, begin to form an image. Not all at once. Gradually. Kindly. You feel no tension in this waiting. There is no countdown. No deadline. The universe does not mind how long understanding takes. It has been patient far longer than you have. Your breathing remains slow and steady. Inhale. Exhale. Pause. The pause feels shared. You imagine the moment when all these faint signals finally align, when listening turns into seeing, not because anyone forced it, but because enough patience has accumulated. The image does not burst into existence. It settles into focus, like eyes adjusting to low light. A shadow emerges from silence. You chuckle softly at that. Even cosmic discoveries seem to prefer understatement. The lake remains unchanged, but your relationship to it shifts again. You realize that knowing does not always come from looking harder. Sometimes it comes from stepping back and letting information arrive in its own language. You think about how often you try to understand things by staring at them, pressing closer, demanding clarity. The lake offers another method. Sit. Listen. Let patterns form. The hum fades slightly, or perhaps it merges with your own breath. The boundary between inner and outer quiet blurs. Observation feels less like effort and more like participation. Signals continue to arrive, each one gently reinforcing the last. Together, they confirm what you have already felt. The shadow is real. The depth is real. The shape of space behaves as expected. The universe is consistent, even when it is subtle. You feel a small satisfaction settle in, not pride, but alignment. Understanding arrived without disturbance. That feels right. The lake's surface glows faintly, reflecting a sky that is beginning to soften toward morning. Not yet dawn. Just the promise of it. The shadow remains, calm and precise, now held within a wider context of listening. You take another slow breath. Slow inhale. Longer exhale. The signals have aligned. An image has formed. Not loud. Not dramatic. Simply present, rising gently from silence, ready to guide you toward the next quiet realization waiting just beyond the lake's edge. You stay beside the lake, but your attention begins to fold inward, the way breath does when it grows slow and unguarded. The shadow still rests at the center, calm and complete, yet it no longer feels distant. It feels related. Like something you recognize without having words for it. The night air rests warmly on your skin now. Not cold. Not heavy. Just present. You inhale gently, feeling the breath expand your chest. You exhale, and the lake seems to exhale with you, surface smooth, unbroken, endlessly patient. You begin to notice how much of your life is shaped by things you cannot see. Gravity holds you here, quietly. Time carries you forward, softly. Memory bends your thoughts before you realize they are moving. None of these forces announce themselves, yet all of them guide you. The lake has been showing you this all along. The shadow at its center no longer feels like an object of study. It feels like a reflection. Not of your appearance, but of your experience. Something invisible, powerful, consistent, shaping everything around it without needing to be observed directly. You breathe in again. You breathe out. The rhythm feels familiar. You realize that black holes are not strange exceptions in the universe. They are extreme versions of rules that are already shaping you, moment by moment. Space curves. Time stretches. Motion responds. Even here, even now, these same principles are at work, just expressed gently enough to feel like rest. The lake's surface reflects faint starlight, and you notice how the reflections shift as you shift your focus. Nothing drastic changes. Just subtle adjustments. Perspective matters. It always has. You think about how emotions work. How they pull your attention inward or outward without asking permission. How they bend your days, slow your thoughts, stretch moments into something thick and textured. You rarely see these forces directly, yet they shape your inner landscape as surely as gravity shapes the lake. The universe does not seem so distant anymore. The shadow remains calm, but it feels less mysterious now. It is no longer an unknown. It is an example. It shows you that invisibility does not mean absence. It means influence working quietly. You smile softly at that. So many things you worry about are invisible too. So many things you trust. Breath. Balance. Sleep. The lake has bundled them all into one quiet lesson. The hum returns, faint and steady. It sounds closer now, or perhaps you are simply more open to hearing it. The sound does not interrupt your thoughts. It carries them, the way a slow river carries leaves without hurry. You feel warmth in your chest, spreading outward, easing places you did not realize were tense. The lake does not judge tension. It dissolves it through example. You consider how often you have feared what you cannot see. The future. Change. Letting go. The shadow shows you another way to think about the unseen. Not as danger, but as structure. Not as chaos, but as order working quietly behind the surface. Even gravity, so strong and unavoidable, expresses itself here without drama. It does not yank. It does not tear. It curves. It invites. It shapes paths gently, persistently, faithfully. You breathe again, slower this time. Inhale connection. Exhale separation. The separation feels softer now. You realize that you, too, are a shadow of sorts. Defined not only by what you show, but by what you carry invisibly. Experiences shape you. Time shapes you. Forces you cannot point to still leave their outline. This thought does not feel heavy. It feels grounding. The lake remains unchanged, but your understanding deepens. You see now that the universe does not hide its truths out of cruelty. It expresses them in ways that reward patience. The shadow rewards looking without grabbing, listening without interrupting. You think about how this applies to rest. Sleep itself is guided by invisible processes, rhythms you rarely witness directly. You do not force sleep to arrive. You prepare space, and it comes when it is ready. The lake understands this. The universe understands this. Your body understands this. The shadow at the center of the lake does not pull your attention aggressively. It waits. It allows you to notice when you are ready. That feels like kindness. You feel your thoughts slowing again, lengthening, drifting one at a time. They no longer pile up. Each one arrives, rests, then moves on. Time feels generous. The faint starlight begins to soften, not brightening yet, but hinting that night will not last forever. This does not disturb you. It reassures you. Change does not erase calm. It carries it forward. You reflect on how unseen forces shape your life every day, often for the better. Habits form. Healing happens. Understanding grows. None of these processes announce themselves with noise. They simply work. The lake begins to fade slightly into starlight now, its surface reflecting more sky than water. The shadow remains, but it feels lighter, as if its lesson has been delivered. You take another slow breath. Inhale steadiness. Exhale resistance. You feel aligned, not with answers, but with process. With the idea that what you cannot see is still trustworthy. That silence still holds information. That absence still has shape. The universe feels less distant, less intimidating. It feels intimate. Familiar. Like something you belong to rather than something you must decipher. The lake continues to soften, its edges blending gently into the surrounding light. The shadow remains behind, but it no longer feels central. Its influence has already reached you. You stay with this feeling, letting it settle into your body, into your breathing, into the quiet spaces between thoughts. The unseen continues its work, patiently shaping what comes next, as the lake slowly dissolves into starlight, preparing you to carry its calm with you when you finally turn away. You stand at the shore one last time. The night air brushes gently against your skin, cool but welcoming. Your breath flows slowly, deliberately. Inhale, pause, exhale. Each cycle mirrors the lake's subtle rhythm, the way water has been moving beneath the stars all along. You notice it now, as if noticing was the final gesture the lake has been inviting you to make. The shadow remains at the center, calm and complete. Its darkness does not reach for you, does not demand your attention. It simply exists, quietly shaping what you have come to understand. It reminds you that even when something is unseen, it can still be deeply influential. You have felt this with gravity, with time, with rotation. You have felt it with the lake itself. You inhale again, letting your shoulders soften. Exhale, releasing the last threads of tension you have been carrying without knowing. The cool air drifts slightly across your face. Somewhere deep in the water, the faintest ripple moves, imperceptible, a reminder that even stillness is a form of motion. Stepping back, you sense the world differently. The lake has not changed. Its depths are the same, its shadow the same. But you have changed. Your awareness has widened, and the quiet you carry is not an absence, it is a presence. You are now attuned to the subtle currents that shape everything, from light bending at the edges of darkness to the invisible influences on your own heart and mind. You think about how much of life, like the lake, exists unseen. The pull of gravity, the slow turning of time, the careful bending of space, all of it is constant, guiding, holding you. Just because you cannot see it does not mean it is not shaping you. You realize that this is comforting, that there is a quiet order to the universe, a pattern of patience and care that exists everywhere, even within you. The air around you warms subtly as night inches toward morning. The lake reflects faint starlight, soft and shimmering, as if acknowledging the attention you have paid. You smile gently at the memory of each lesson, the stillness, the bending of light, the calm edges, the shadow that remembers, time that slows, space that rotates, and the subtle influence of all that cannot be seen. Each one now lives within you, a collection of gentle truths that require no force to be understood. You notice your feet on the ground, solid and supportive. Each step away from the shore is deliberate, unhurried. Inhale, exhale, the rhythm continues, a subtle echo of the lake's own pulse. The memory of the shadow does not follow you as darkness. It follows you as calm, a quiet confidence in the presence of the unseen. You reflect on how black holes, once imagined as violent, destructive things, have revealed themselves differently here. They are not threats. They are confirmations of deep, consistent laws. They are the universe whispering its rules in shadows and curves, offering evidence without demand, shaping everything in subtle, patient ways. You carry that understanding with you. You glance back. The shadow remains at the center, unchanged, but you do not feel the need to linger. Its lesson is not in being watched, but in being understood. You feel a sense of gratitude, quiet and expansive, as if the lake itself has offered you a gift that requires no wrapping, no ceremony. It simply exists, and in noticing, you participate. The hum of the universe is still faint in your mind. It has accompanied you this entire journey, soft and steady, like a heartbeat beneath a blanket. You allow yourself to attune to it fully, noticing the warmth it carries, the gentle insistence that presence matters more than intensity, and that patience shapes the world. You breathe deeply once more. Inhale, pause, exhale. Each breath carries the lake with it, not in form, not in water, but in feeling. Stillness. Patience. Respect for the unseen. Awareness without need to grasp. This is the quiet you are bringing with you. The shadow remains, but it no longer feels like a separate thing. It is embedded in the way you understand absence, the way you recognize influence, the way you feel the subtle pull of forces that are invisible yet consistent. You know now that you are part of the same physics, the same calm principles that the shadow has been shaped by. You take another step. The shoreline begins to fade behind you, blending into the night sky. The lake becomes one with the stars, the water and the sky merging in soft reflection. Each step forward is a gentle exhale. You carry the quiet within you, a rhythm that does not need disturbance to exist. You think of all the things you have seen and felt. Time thickening, space bending, light curving, shadows shaping themselves, rotation moving softly beneath the surface. None of it was harsh. None of it was abrupt. It all arrived as if the universe were breathing along with you, teaching you that understanding does not need force, that observation can be gentle, and that even extreme, unseen phenomena can be tender in their consistency. Your steps continue, each one slow, measured, calm. You inhale the night air, hold it softly, and exhale into the promise of morning. The shadow remains behind you, but the knowledge it imparted flows forward, like a river carried invisibly through your veins. You do not need to see it to feel it. You do not need to touch it to carry it. The first hints of dawn reach the edge of the sky, pale and patient. Light stretches across distant clouds, softening the horizon. It is not blinding. It does not rush. It merely exists, like the lake did, like the shadow did, offering you a gentle assurance that change does not have to disturb calm. You pause, letting your eyes take in the scene, letting the quiet settle fully into your body. You are no longer just observing the lake. You are walking away with it inside you, a rhythm, a lesson, a presence. You understand that what you carry now is not just knowledge, it is a sense of belonging to the same universe that shaped the shadow, the lake, and the calm night sky above. You take one last, slow breath. Inhale. Pause. Exhale. Longer than before, a grateful exhale that carries everything learned, every curve, every stillness, every unseen force. And then you release, softly, into the warmth of the approaching day, carrying the quiet with you. The lake, the shadow, the night, they remain behind, patient and steady. You move forward, not away, not separate, but intertwined with the calm laws that shape all things, seen and unseen, visible and shadowed, carrying with you the gentle rhythm of the universe as it always intended.